Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sort through complex information to give you, well, the essential insights you need fast. Today, we're getting into some core principles of Buddhist practice, pulling the wisdom straight from a YouTube transcript we've analyzed.
And our aim today, just so you know, is really to focus purely on the teachings themselves.
Exactly.
The actual content, giving you a clear look at these ideas, separate from any specific teacher.
Right. We want to unpack these principles, offer insights that could genuinely help deepen your own understanding, maybe support personal growth.
It's like a shortcut to some pretty profound concepts.
Yeah, without needing to sift through everything yourself. Okay, so let's dive in. First topic, Chantudoi. That's right thinking.
Right. And the transcript introduces Tudoi thinking as, well, basically recalling things you've learned.
Okay.
And the very first part of Chantudoi is onle, which means reviewing or recalling the teachings. Specifically, Dao Li, the core Dharma principles.
So like actively remembering this stuff.
Exactly. Imagine, say you're exercising in the morning, instead of letting your mind just wander everywhere.
Which it tends to do.
Right. You'd consciously bring to mind something you've learned, like the meaning of emptiness, or maybe the law of karma.
Okay, so what's the real point of doing that constantly?
Well, there are two main reasons highlighted. First, it's to stop you from forgetting these valuable teachings, to really internalize them. And second, so you can actually use them in your daily life when you need them to, reduce suffering.
And it's not just for when things go wrong.
No, that's key. The teaching emphasizes doing this review even in peaceful times. It should be woven into your everyday thinking.
Okay, now this is interesting. There's this common idea, isn't there, that Buddhist practice means just immediately trying to get a still, quiet mind, pure presence.
Yes, and the transcript tackles that directly. It calls it a misunderstanding. It points out that Chantudya, right thinking, is an earlier step on the Eightfold Path, and it actually requires thinking. It's not about achieving a mental blank slate right away.
So you don't just jump to the no-thought state.
Exactly. The idea presented is that this process of right thinking is what actually leads to that state of mental purity and stillness. So the transcript really advises against beginners just trying to shut down their thoughts immediately.
You have to learn how to think first. In the right way.
Precisely. You need to learn to think correctly. There's a great example given. Think of someone, maybe a layperson, whose mind seems incredibly busy.
Yeah, always juggling things.
Right. Maybe they're deeply involved in caring for family or community work, constantly thinking about others' needs.
Okay.
The transcript suggests that if the nature of those thoughts is wholesome, ethical, compassionate, focused on others' well-being, then that seemingly busy mind is actually planting positive seeds for future stability.
So it's the quality of the thinking, not just the amount.
That's exactly it at this stage. The quality matters hugely.
So trying to force an empty mind too soon, without laying this foundation of right thinking, that could backfire.
That's the warning, yes. It could lead to instability down the line, maybe when difficult karma ripens. The path is gradual. You can't really skip steps.
Okay, step one is recalling the teachings.
Yeah.
What's the next part of right thinking?
The second aspect is Ochuwori Santekte. That's about relating the teachings to your actual lived experience.
Bringing it down to earth.
Yeah. Taking those principles you've recalled and actively watching how they play out in your own life day to day.
Can you give an example? How would someone actually do that?
Okay, so say you've been thinking about meta-loving kindness. Then, as you go about your day, you'd consciously notice your reactions. How do you feel towards strangers you pass? Or someone you find, difficult? Or maybe someone cuts you off in traffic.
Right, those trigger moments.
Exactly. Can you extend that goodwill even then? That's applying it. It makes the concept real, not just an idea.
That makes perfect sense. It anchors it.
Or another example from the transcript, reflecting on votum, impermanence.
Everything changes.
Right. So you'd look at your own life. What's changing quickly? What seems stable but actually isn't deep down? You connect the principle to your personal observations.
So it has to be personal, not just textbook examples.
Yes, the emphasis is really on your own unique life and circumstances.
Got it. So recall, relate. What's next?
The third element is funbian. This means critical questioning or reflection.
Questioning the teachings, even from the Buddha.
Yes, that's what the transcript suggests is important. Examining them critically. Do they make logical sense? Are they applicable in different situations?
That feels almost counterintuitive for spiritual practice.
Maybe, but the idea presented is that real truth isn't afraid of questions.
Okay.
This kind of critical reflection helps you sort out the core Dharma from, say, later interpretations or cultural additions.
How might you question something like emptiness?
Well, you might ask, if everything is empty, could that lead to indifference, apathy? How does that square with the emphasis on compassion, on metta?
Checking for internal consistency.
Exactly. It's about rigorous internal analysis. But the transcript is clear. This is internal contemplation, not about starting external arguments before you've really thought it through yourself.
Right. Internal work first. Okay. Recall, relate, question.
Yeah.
What's number 4?
The fourth aspect is fatman, making vows or aspirations.
Vows. Like monks' vows.
Not necessarily formal vows like that. It's more about deeply examining your own mind, your tam, your heart, and making a firm personal commitment to practice the Dharma consistently.
What sort of commitments?
Things like resolving to practice the teachings for your whole life, even when it's hard.
Okay.
Or committing to ethical conduct and moderation, even if you become wealthy or successful. Or vowing to deepen your understanding of karma and maybe help others understand it. Or cultivating universal loving kindness.
So, setting a clear direction for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Setting strong intentions. The transcript talks about the power of repeating these vows sincerely, how it can gradually reshape your mind, your heart, even your karma over lifetimes. It's a commitment to transformation.
That's quite powerful. Okay, the transcript goes even further, right? More aspects of right thinking.
It does, yeah. It gets into some perhaps less obvious ones, like sangtao, creativity or innovation.
Creativity. How does that fit with ancient Buddhist teachings?
Well, the examples given are quite practical initially, like someone designing an automatic bell ringer for a temple or a chanting machine.
Oh, okay. Modern solutions.
Right. But it connects us to a deeper drive, finding effective, accurate ways to practice the Dharma now in the modern world. Ways that respect the ancient wisdom, but also connect with, say, modern science or understanding.
So keeping the Dharma alive and relevant.
That seems to be the idea. This creativity is seen as arising from recognizing suffering and genuinely wanting to find ways to overcome it. There's an analogy used like comparing ancient artifacts to modern fashion. The core artifact, the Dharma, is timeless. But how it's presented, how it's worn or used, might need some innovation to resonate today.
That's a great analogy. But is there a danger of getting too creative? Changing things too much?
Absolutely. And the transcript specifically warns against Sangtao Quatren excessive creativity. Innovation that strays from the core teachings is seen as problematic, potentially carrying negative karmic weight.
So innovate in service of the core truth. Don't replace it.
Exactly. That's the balance.
What else?
Then there's Lutenduldichik, which is deductive reasoning, thinking through the wider implications of a principle.
Going beyond the surface level.
Yeah. Take the law of karma again. Deductive reasoning wouldn't just stop at action leads to result. It would explore the complex web. If you give money to a child beggar, what are the ripple effects on the child, the family, the system? It's thinking about the downstream consequences.
A more systemic view.
Okay. Then the opposite, in a way. TUP, inductive reasoning or generalization.
Spotting patterns from examples.
Right. Learning from observing multiple instances. The transcript gives folk wisdom examples, like knowing rain is coming from certain clouds. Useful, but it also cautions against being too rigid. Don't assume the pattern always holds, look for exceptions.
Learn from experience, but stay open. Makes sense.
And then, linked to the earlier point about questioning is Hawaii Vachop Doubt Now and Acceptance.
Healthy skepticism again.
Yes, it's presented as important at the start. The transcript uses an analogy of a wealthy person choosing who gets to live in their mansion.
Okay.
Do they choose the servant who just pleads constantly, or the one who works diligently and proves their worth? It relates this to discerning true practice from just outward shows of devotion.
So don't just accept things blindly.
Exactly. Question if a teaching truly aligns with the core message. It even references the Kalama Sutta, where the Buddha himself advised against blind belief. Acceptance comes after examination, and sometimes after years of practice and seeing the results yourself.
Like testing it out.
Yeah. Testing the teaching about the merit of bowing reverently, for instance, by doing it consistently and observing the effect. Or trying chanted water for healing and seeing if it works for you. It's experiential validation.
Okay, so that's a lot of facets.
Yeah.
Does the transcript then try to define Chan To Do more simply?
It does. It pulls it together into a few key categories. First, To Do Vedoli, thinking about Dharma principles. We've covered that.
Right.
Second, To Do Vedoging, thinking about wholesome actions, ethics.
How's that different from thinking about principles?
It's more specific, more focused on our conduct, our interactions, like reflecting on a fight you had with a neighbor and deciding, okay, next time I'll try to be kinder, more understanding. It's applying the big principles to specific ethical situations.
Got it. Practical ethics.
Then thirdly, and this might seem surprising, Tu Di Vego Bofun, thinking about your duties and responsibilities.
Thinking about your job is right thinking.
If done mindfully, yes. The example is carefully planning your work tasks to fulfill your responsibilities properly. That focused, responsible thinking, even for paid work or family duties, is presented as a form of Chan Tu Due.
So it's about bringing mindfulness and ethics into everything.
That's the idea. But there's a caution, too. Avoid bunt to do. The sickness of thinking, overthinking, getting stressed out.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. It stresses balancing this active thinking with meditation, with mindfulness, finding that quiet base, maybe like 5 minutes of stillness for every period of focused thought, finding your own balance.
That's really practical advice. Is there another main element?
Yes. A third crucial part of Tan Tu Du is Lan Pham Khoit Nung Suin Kap Thean, actively purifying the mind of unwholesome thoughts.
So noticing the negative stuff that comes up.
Noticing it and actively working to eliminate it. The transcript acknowledges negative thoughts still arise, even when you're trying to think positively. Dealing with them is part of the practice.
And that's not easy.
No. It's described as difficult, a lifelong process of purification, constant cultivation.
Okay. Now, how does all this connect to meditation? To Chinese, right concentration?
Crucial connection. The stability you gain in deep meditation samadhi needs a solid foundation. That foundation is the ethical conduct and mental clarity built through Chantudo.
Like building a house?
Exactly the analogy used. Building on solid ground, Chantudu, versus building on sand. Without that ethical base, meditative states might be shaky, easily lost.
That explains the order in the Eightfold Path.
It does. And related to this, the transcript offers a really interesting take on that Zen phrase, Kom Thun Hong Ak. Neither good nor evil.
Yeah, that one can be confusing. Does it mean good and evil don't matter?
Not at all, according to this interpretation. It's actually seen as the highest praise of good. Good is so fundamental, so natural, it doesn't even need to be named.
Oh, I see.
And it's an absolute rejection of evil as being unnatural, a deviation. So it actually reinforces the core teaching. Do good, avoid evil, purify the mind.
That clears up a lot. So, using right thinking to build ethics.
Yes, establishing a Dao duck morality in your mind. Moving beyond just gut reactions. Using ethical reflection guided by the Dharma. The transcript suggests using your thoughts as a measure.
How's that?
Thoughts leading to peace, joy, well-being. Those are right. Thoughts causing agitation, suffering, what they call fian afflictions. Those are wrong.
So you monitor the effect of your thoughts.
Exactly. If someone speaks ill of you and you feel angry, you use right thinking to reevaluate that anger, aiming to overcome it, perhaps by reflecting on compassion or impermanence.
Makes sense.
It suggests using core principles like reverence, compassion, humility as continuous reflection points to actually cultivate those qualities within yourself.
And this inner work shows outwardly.
Yes, as a balance, a kind of joyful amiability combined with a deep inner serenity. It also strongly advises self-reflection when things go wrong. Take responsibility, don't just blame others.
That's hard but important.
And then it introduces specific Buddhist contemplations, Quan, as focused types of Cham Tu Du for purification.
Like guided meditations.
Sort of, but focused on a topic. Quan Tubi, loving kindness. Quan Vonga, non-self. Quan Vo Tudum, impermanence. Each aims to cultivate a specific quality or insight. Deeply contemplating non-self, for example, helps you understand why the Buddha talked about the 5 aggregates being impermanent.
So active, purposeful thinking within meditation.
Exactly. And it even explains using Chan Tu Du Det Vong Tam to deal with scattered thoughts during meditation, especially early on.
Using thought to stop thought.
Kind of, yeah. In the beginning, if your mind is really wild, you might need to actively think no thinking or gently bring your focus back with a mental command. It's a temporary tool.
Like stepping stone.
Right. Later, you can just recognize and release thoughts directly. But initially, some active counterthinking might be needed.
That makes meditation seem more accessible. What about Fuke merit in thinking?
Interesting link. The teaching suggests that having more merit often correlates with having more wholesome thoughts.
And negative thoughts might indicate
Negative karma, potentially. So practices like Samho, repentance, and Lamphuk, merit-making, doing good deeds, are recommended to help transform negative thought patterns.
So outer actions can influence inner thoughts.
Yes. It even links extreme negative thought patterns to mental illness, suggesting merit-making could be beneficial there too.
Fascinating connection. And thoughts and speech, to do and loyanoi.
Well, thought comes before speech, obviously, but being able to talk eloquently about Dharma doesn't mean you're practicing it.
The classic the talk versus walk the walk.
Exactly. There's a warning against kohang, boasting about your understanding. It can diminish merit and actually hinder your practice. Better to contemplate silently and act.
Let your actions speak.
Pretty much. Then there's a quick look at the stages from thought to action. Recognizing the need, contemplating how to act, then the crucial step, deciding to act. And finally, starting.
That decision point is key, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it points out the obstacles. Laziness, being, hesitation, duda, fear. Things that stop us moving from thinking to doing.
We all know those.
Indeed. It also briefly touches on the nammam, the 5 aggregates or skhenhas, the components of our experience.
How do they relate to thinking?
It focuses on tuam, perception concepts, and hanam, mental formations volition. Hanam is described as the deeper, more complex mental activity, the underlying processing.
Like the engine room.
Kind of. And tuam is what presents the conscious thoughts, the images, the concepts we're aware of, like the readouts on the dashboard.
Okay, that helps visualize it.
Then, tying into volna, non-self, it discusses external influences on our thoughts.
Things affecting us from outside.
Yes. The idea that not all thoughts originate purely from us. There could be positive influences from Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or negative ones from unwholesome forces or spirits.
Wow, okay.
But crucially, it stresses that our own karma, our own accumulated good or bad actions, is the main factor determining which influences we attract.
So cultivate goodness within to attract goodness from without.
Essentially, yes. Cultivating reverence, humility, wholesome qualities helps align you with positive forces.
That puts the responsibility back on us.
Exactly. So wrapping up this section, the transcript really emphasizes Chantudoi as the essential foundation for a pure ethical mind, the necessary groundwork before advanced practices.
And it feeds into right understanding, Chankin.
Yes, they have a reciprocal relationship. Right understanding gives you the material for right thinking, and right thinking can deepen your right understanding. It's a cycle.
A virtuous cycle.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And it finishes with this beautiful analogy of transforming the mind through Dharma practice.
From what to what?
From a muddy pond to a fragrant garden, a stormy sea to a safe boat, a wild forest to a peaceful path, ultimately dissolving the ego into the vastness of the Dharma. Then there's a closing poem.
Wow. That's a really rich and comprehensive picture of right thinking. So much there.
It really is. To sum it up briefly, Chantudoi isn't just one thing. It's recalling teachings, yes, but also applying them, questioning them critically, setting intentions, even being creative. It's ethical thinking, purifying the mind of negativity, and building that solid foundation for deeper practice like meditation.
And focusing on the content of these teachings, like we did today, really does seem like a powerful way to get a handle on them.
Absolutely. So maybe something for you, the listener, to reflect on is how these different facets of right thinking show up in your own life.
Yeah.
Where could you consciously practice recalling or relating these ideas to your experience, or questioning or setting those positive intentions?
Definitely gives us a lot to, well, think about in the right way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.